In neighboring Illinois, early voting in the race for the White House begins this coming week. I spoke with WTTW News Director Hugo Balta recently from Chicago on what voters there are concerned about as they prepare to mail in their ballots. So Hugo, let's talk a little bit about the context of where Chicago and Illinois fit in this political campaign. Just recently you had the governor tweeting about concerns about election judges. Illinois has been talking about the infrastructure and making it possible for people to vote safely.
And that's really the concern here in Illinois for voters. It's what's going to happen beginning with early voting that happens at the end of the month, September 24th, and of course on election day. The overwhelming number of Illinoisans have been sending in order to mail to be able to file their ballots through the mail. We've seen the numbers triple from 2016 to 2020 in regards to the amount of requests to do so. And then also in Cook County, which Chicago is a part of, triple numbers in regards to the primary that happened in March. So there's a lot of concern in regards to how the system is going to work, and even in person, what procedures are going to be put into place to ensure that people that are voting in person will be safe.
Mm-hmm. So is there a parallel education campaign that goes along with this and helps people understand that here are the 3 things that you got to make sure that you do with your mail-in ballot so that it's not invalidated down the line?
The message has been both from state and local to do it early. Do it as early as possible. There's been some talk about using safe boxes across the state and certainly within Chicago, although that hasn't been finalized yet. The governor this week talked about using special funds in order to ensure the hiring of clerks and judges, but also providing things like hand sanitizer, ensuring people are wearing masks. So it's been spoken to. I think as far as concrete outlines, that's still to be seen.
People often forget that Chicago is not Illinois, that there is a very different political landscape as you travel throughout the state. I mean, obviously Chicago is the 800-pound gorilla. It's got a huge number of people, 3rd largest city, but this is not just a Democratic attempt. This is to make sure that there are lots of Republicans in Illinois who get their votes counted too.
Absolutely. You see Illinois is a blue state, and in 2016, it went to Hillary Clinton. But outside of Chicago, outside of Cook County, in the rural areas, you see a lot of support for President Trump. I think most of the support for Vice President Biden is within Chicago, but you're right. I think when we look at not just the general election, but elections within the state, of which there are many, including for U.S. Senator and Cook County State's Attorney's Office, that there's a lot of competing ideologies, both on the Republican side and the Democratic side.
So how have the candidates been campaigning in the state, or what kind of trips, virtual or otherwise, have they been making here?
Very little, and I think that's, part of it has to do with historically how Illinois has gone. Most of the rhetoric that we've seen between President Trump and the state of Illinois has been the back and forth between the president and Governor Pritzker and also Mayor Lightfoot, largely around the handling of the COVID-19 crisis. Certainly the civic unrest that we've seen in the aftermath of the death of George Floyd. But as far as speaking to voters, not much. And the same thing could be said for Biden. I think that both their presence, I'm sure, as we get closer to Election Day, will be heard, will be seen, will be felt, but not that much.
How does COVID-19 shuffle the deck when it comes to the priorities for voters there?
There's, I think it's everything. We are in an extraordinary year, largely driven by COVID-19, and certainly we've seen how communities, both urban and rural, have suffered under COVID-19 from a health perspective, to also the economy and employment. A lot of businesses forced to shut down or readjust for social distancing. So what's top of mind for voters is, again, how and who is going to get us through this COVID-19 pandemic, understanding that it's tiered and there's an expectation that now that summer is ending, that we're going to see a resurgence of cases and numbers of COVID-19. There's also, of course, a heightened concern about the economy and what's going to happen once we get through this, or as we're getting through this recession, how the markets are handling it, and especially for small businesses. Will they be able to sustain? I think those are the two things that are top of mind for voters as they're looking at November 3rd.
Hugo Balta, News Director of WTTW in Chicago. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.